Hello, my name is Jasmine. I'm a holistic counselor, and I'm also a goal setting, organization, and Notion enthusiast. So, today I really want to dive into a little bit about how I use Notion for life organizing, but generally the biggest 6 tips that I have for things to add to your Notion that will be wildly helpful in organizing your life and how to kind of think about your relationship to Notion before you dive in, right? Because it's so easy to find a new organizational tool and to say, I'm going to use this for everything, and then get overwhelmed and not use it for the things that you actually need and have all these extra things in there that you really don't need and that distract you. So, here are my best tips. I'm going to show you my Notion template here first. Okay, so I use Notion as kind of generally a way to take all of those things that I used to write on sticky notes and email drafts and my planner and all of those things and have actual real databases for them. So I use it both for my business life, my personal life. I add all of the articles that I read that I want to, be able to search for later on here. But I also use it as a way to stay really inspired, track my habits, make sure that I'm tending to all of my goals and all of my milestones. So that means that my number one tip here really is to get clear on what you want to use Notion for. What are the things that you find yourself constantly losing track of or making lists for? That's the number one question that I think is going to give you a hint for how you might really want to use Notion or tweak the Notion dashboards that you already have. What are the things that you find yourself making, writing down somewhere and then losing and forgetting? What would be really helpful for you to have a database for that kind of like populates and lives somewhere consistently that's not on paper that you can always have access to? And what are the things that you will realistically check Notion for? Um, those are some kind of starting general questions. And when you get clear on that, the important part is to eliminate all the rest of the things. There are plenty of things that I think of that I could put in my Notion, but I don't because I know that realistically I'm not going to check back there for it, or I already have another system for it, if that makes sense. Notion tip number 2 is to kind of in the same vein, separate your digital versus paper organizing. So what you'll see here is that I use Notion personally for all of the big picture stuff. So I have all of my big picture 10-year, 3-year, 1-year goals. I have my projects in here, but you will notice that I do not have my to-do list in here, right? This is just a template that I've made and that you can download if you like it. So this is not my actual homepage or dashboard, but these are just examples of what you could keep in here. 10-year goals, 3-year goals, make sure that it's always in front of your face so that you don't lose sight of it. Your quarterly open projects that you're working on, and maybe a couple of milestones. Milestones are really the things that the the greatest level of detail that I get in Notion, because for myself, I find that having a paper planner is actually really helpful for all of the everyday to-dos. This might be completely different for you. Maybe you're someone that likes all the big picture stuff on paper, but you like all of the kind of tiny little details on Notion. So just be clear so that you're not duplicating, right? You don't want one list in your planner and that same list in Notion that you constantly have to be migrating over and updating. You want to be clear on which one is which. Tip number 3 is to set up a tag library. So if you're someone that likes reading as much as I do, or already have a bit of a knowledge hub on Notion, and a knowledge hub would be essentially something that you just save articles, videos, book notes, project ideas, quotes, anything that you really want to refer back to that's from a different source, an author or a creator, that you can save in Notion. But that gets pretty unwieldy if you don't have a way of tagging or organizing that information. And even if you have tags in here, if you don't set up for yourself an actual tag library, it can be so hard to find anything, right? So Here's the tag library that again is just an example that isn't mine. The one that I use for my own personal stuff is way more in depth than this. I have many, many filing cabinets and a lot of things in my master tag database, but here's how it works. So, setting up a tag library, you want to just start off by thinking of the kinds of materials that you find yourself often reading. What kinds of categories do they fall into? Would they be productivity tools, marketing information? Maybe you're really into self development. Maybe you're into mental health, like I am. So, those, start with those categories and then see if you have ones that are either more specific or less specific. So, for example, under mental health, I might have the topic of trauma or anxiety or depression. And I might be reading articles or research or things that are related to that. And then I can store them under the master tag of mental health eventually when I get enough things in there. What I've listed here is the master tags, right? Would be like personal health is kind of this bigger overall thing. You can get as many layers of hierarchy as you want. So things that you would put in personal health is things like self-development and mental health. Or maybe you have an overall filing cabinet of business and you put those tags of, marketing, organizational development, productivity, whatever in that master tag. This means that when you click on this master tag, right, of personal health has these subtags of mental health and self-development, and you can see the number of resources that are in each of those so far. And that's what these numbers show here as well, which I love putting in there. So, developing a tag database for yourself is really crucial. And I do this just through Notion relations. I'm not going to go too deep into that here, but just notice here that we've got the filing cabinet of organizational development is business, and it has no subtags because it is already a subtag, if that makes sense. So, having a tag library here with a filing cabinet and then subtags underneath them are really really crucial if you're holding a lot of information or articles or videos in Notion. Number 4 is to make your homepage work for you. My homepage is everything for me, and it's pretty close to this. I created this template that I created it for myself, and again, if you like it, you can get it. The link is down below. But I made it kind of adjusted to exactly what I need, and hopefully other people resonate as well. For me, I wanted a vision or goals focused homepage or dashboard because I wanted that to be inspiring. So already up here on my homepage, I've got, this isn't my word for the year this year, but it would be your word for the year. I've got core desired feelings. I've got my values. I've got my vision board up in here already. So things that are really inspiring. And as I scroll down, I have everything at my fingertips, 10-year, 3-year, 1-year goals, all the way down to things that I like to do this season, seasonal activities here. So make your homepage feel really warm, inviting, aesthetic, but also almost like a website. Have it be able to provide you with all the links right up front to all of the databases and pages that you need in Notion right here. So everything is super, easy to access and kind of organized by different areas. So make your homepage work for you is that tip. Number 5 is probably my favorite page ever that I've created. I call it the lookout shoulder. It's basically, as someone who is so vision oriented, future oriented, I have so many projects that I think of that I just know I'm not going to do right now. Do you have a list like that somewhere? Do you have that like in the back of your notebook or something? Because I love thinking of projects and I have a much harder time executing and finishing them, right? So if you're like me in that way, develop a lookout shoulder on Notion. Don't make it on paper. Have it on Notion so that you can just keep it in there. And what's cool about this is that my lookout shoulder is actually just a subsection of my projects. So I can very quickly, let's say I want to, these are just ideas. These aren't things that are my specific goals, but start a podcast. So let's say you wanted to move this into like a project that you've finally decided this has been in your lookout shoulder for a long time. You want to do this. All you have to do is change the project status to, one of these other things, and it automatically gets sorted into your projects, your open projects. And you can choose a quarter or the year that you're working on it, the month that you're working on it, and then start to actually develop it out more. So having a lookout shoulder is really just a plus. I love it so much. The next thing, the last tip would be to have an inbox. So kind of the opposite of a lookout shoulder here. We go down to our inbox, which is just maybe not the opposite, but kind of the idea is that these are things that you're processing right now in real time, that then needs a place to live in your Notion. So if you're someone that, thinks of things on the fly and you don't have time to then go into which exact page on Notion you need it to be, this is perfect for you. So have an inbox where you can just type in new idea here that you are having, and you can then drag that new idea directly into any of these areas. So maybe the new idea is a project, or maybe it goes under one of the projects that you already have open. Maybe it goes in your resources and notes list. Maybe it's an article. Maybe it goes in your lookout shoulder because it's a project that you're not going to work on for a while, or your kind of ticky-tacky list that I have in here of just, that long list of to-dos that like really doesn't have a due date, but you got to do it eventually. I keep that on Notion as well, rather than crowding up my paper planner and agenda. So those are my best tips and tools for using Notion. I hope that that was helpful. I really enjoy talking about Notion and all things productivity. Let me know if you got any cool new ideas from this. And if you did, whatever, hit all the buttons, subscribe, the like, all the things, and let me know how you enjoyed it.